So for the little console table that we're making, I'm going to use these actually stringers from a skid. They're a fairly heavy piece of lumber, wide, almost 2 inches thick. So I'll use these for the legs. We'll be able to taper these and get 2 legs out of each piece. But they're pretty rough at the moment, not exactly straight. If you look down there, you can see a little bit of a twist to them. So I'm going to employ my little bed rail technique to kind of join these on the table saw. First pass I'll make with them though is to get a straight edge on one side, then I'll get a straight edge on the other, and then we'll join the face of it. So let me get set up. I'll put the camera on the far side so you can get a look at it as it comes through the saw. Using my little bed rail technique, the bow of the log is out this way, so I'm going to be putting a screw in here to hold it down. And I have a nice straight edge to put against the fence that'll give me a clean edge on this side of the log. So by attaching the bed rail here, I'll get a nice straight edge up against the fence, and that will give me a perfectly straight edge along here. The material we're cutting here is maple, so it is a little bit hard. Actually, it's a lot hard. Okay, I got one straight edge here. I can take my rail off. Now I can come through this way, and we'll just kind of keep that fresh space up against the edge of the fence. I'll adjust the fence to get us a little closer. And then just a smidge more. And we're ready to cut the other edge. Pushing hard, keep the fresh cut against the fence. So now I have good straight edges top and bottom. I want to do the sides here and get a nice fresh edge, but this will be a 2-pass operation, so go through once and then come back and go through the other way. The trick is this piece of wood has got a bow in it, so again using my little bed rail, I'm going to get this part of the edge in the middle of the board. Now you may be thinking, Dean, you're putting a lot of holes in the wood. And that's true, but look at what I'm starting with. I got a lot of holes to begin with. This is reclaimed wood, so it's not perfect, but it's available. In my neighborhood, I can get a ton of it for free. So when you get down to it, it becomes wood with character. Okay, so we've got that rail on now. So I have a perfectly straight edge here, which I can now put through the saw. I'm going to bring the fence in just a little wee bit. I'm not looking to take a lot off that edge or the surface here. I just kind of want to get it cleaned up. That should be good. So one pass through this way, take it out, flip it over, go through again. Important to make sure your blade is 100%, 90 degrees. It's got to be absolutely vertical. So I set that up before I made this, put this on the saw. Bring the blade in just a little bit closer. That didn't get quite enough off that piece. So bring it over about almost 1/8. And we'll go through that one more pass. Okay, so we got a nice edge on 3 sides. So jointed material, fundamentally jointed material on the table saw. So I'm going to go through with this piece, get it cleaned up, and then we'll have our pieces ready for the legs. Okay, final facing on these boards. Now that I have 3 flat edges, I can put down tight on the table, up against the fence, and I'm just going to go through once, flip it, go through again. Give us 4 flat edges. Alright, and there we have our squared up on the table saw from rough lumber to workable material. I'm going to be cutting these on a diagonal to make the legs. Alright, I got my taper jig set up here. It's been a very handy little tool. What I'm trying to get out of this is, this piece is 3 inches wide. So I want to have the bottom of the leg 1 inch. That'll leave this side 1 7/8, accounting for a 1/8 inch width of the saw blade. Comes down here. It's 1 inch wide at this end. So 1 7/8 here, 7/8 here. That gives me the nice taper that I want. Setting up a taper jig is always a bit of a hassle because you got the pardon me, is a bit of a hassle because you got the distance of the fence from the blade, and then the angle where you want to have the back end and the front end. Just a little bit of fiddliness to get it where you want it. However, both pieces are exactly the same width. I got this set up correctly now, so I should be able to run both pieces through and get 4 legs. Looks like I'm getting a little bit of stress relief on this piece. It's pinching the blade. So I'm going to set up my writhing knife on the back of the saw. Alright, I've gotten the writhing knife in the, holding the thing apart. Let's see if the blade will start up again. Alrighty. Oh, sorry, I took the writhing knife off. I had to wrestle with that a little bit, and in the process of wrestling, I forgot to turn the camera back on. But I did manage to get these pieces separated. A little bit of persuasion with the writhing knife that helped keep the ends apart, and carried on with the cut. So there's 4 legs initial cut. What I want to do now, though, is put a taper this way so that at the end of the leg I have a 1 by 1. So what we'll have down here will be a 1 by 1 square tapered in 2 directions. So I'll set up to do that cut. Using exactly the same setup on the saw, I can now run the legs through this way to get my second taper. Now, the wood is a little bit narrower this way than it is this way, so the taper is actually going to start down a little bit, but that's okay. I kind of like that look. It gives a little bit of flat material here that I'll be using to anchor to the tabletop. You'll see that coming up. And there's our legs with a nice 1-inch square end and a double taper. Very happy with that. A little bit of cleanup work to be done on these legs. It is reclaimed wood, so I want to fill in the holes and the cracks and maybe apply a little bit of glue here or there, just and some putty, but these will turn out just fine. So from the sketch of the little console table, I have some elm wood that I got from a farm up in northern Ontario, an old barn that was that had been brought down. And I used some of that elm to glue together a top. So I cut some strips from that elm board and got these in the clamps, which are now set, so I can undo this and we can see what the top is going to look like. And there, you can see these pieces here have been, outside pieces have been surfaced. This actually came off one of the other videos. I'll put a link in the description of the bed rail router sled. So that's how these ones were finished. So I'll probably go either back to the bed rail router sled, or we don't have much to clean off here, so I might just wind up running it through the thickness planer, the surface planer as is. Right, and here's the other side. So this is going to get trimmed up ultimately to 12 inches by 34 inches long. This will form the top of the table, and we've cut the legs, and we'll use a portion of this wood that's left over as a point of purchase for the legs, and we may use it for some of the structural bits underneath to tie the legs together. I'm not sure if I'm going to do the shelf that you saw in the sketch, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So next up, we'll be trimming this down to exactly 12 inches wide, and then we'll run it through the planer a little bit. The planer can handle wood that's 12 inches, so that's kind of the fundamental reason I go that size. Also for a console table, it's about the right width. So let me get set up for that. Okay, I know I said 12, but it's going to be 11 3/4. There's our top. Should now be able to get that through the thickness planer. But as you can see, I got a little bit of warp here, a little bit of wobble. So I'm going to use a hand planer and just take off a couple spots. There's going to be a spot down here, probably a spot there. I'm just going to plane that off a little bit just to remove some of that flopping around. So when it goes through the planer, we don't wind up with a propeller for a tabletop. So my high spots appear to be here and here. So this corner. I'm going to take off a little bit here. I can feel this quite proud. So I'm going to take a little bit off there first, flip it over, make sure it's flat, and then if I still have more, I'll come back and take a little bit off this end down here. So we'll start up here. Take a look, see what that did. Probably went a little bit too far here. I think my high spot's over here now. Oh no, this is the same spot, that's where I was. Okay, take a little bit more off that. check that out again. And I will go after this spot here. Okay. Oh, you touch up one spot and find another, don't you? There's something in here. Yeah, right there. So I'm going to take a little bit off that. Smidge high here in the middle. And going across this way, a little bit high. You know what, edge to edge, we're okay. Edge to edge, we're all right. From here to here, we're straight. So I'm okay to get this through the thickness planer with a surface like this. So that will give me the opportunity to clean up this top side. And then I'll flip it over, clean up the bottom side. And ultimately, I'm going to be texturing the surface of this table anyway. It's not going to be a mirror finish by any stretch. We're going to probably use a wire brush on this and a flap disc just to kind of stress it a little bit, make it look a little bit more like original barnwood. But for now, I'm going to run it through the thickness planer. I'm just having second thoughts about that. Since I'm going to be texturing it, it might be good just to run it through with a good sander. I'll come back when I have a better idea what I want to do here. All right, I made a decision. I'm going to go with the belt sander on this top piece. I'm not really concerned about getting it super smooth, as I mentioned before. I just kind of want to get it in the ballpark, and it's going to be roughed up for a kind of a textured finish. My belt sander had been giving me a little bit of trouble recently. The belts weren't aligning, so I took it all apart, discovered that the mechanism that adjusts this tension up here to keep the blade tracking true needed a spacer, like a washer and some grease in there to allow it to flex a little bit. It was binding. So that's my theory. So give this a try, see how the belt sander holds up. And if it's working well, then just work lightly and take a little bit off the top, just kind of even off the joints of the wood. I have the noise you hear in the background is a fan that I've got with a filter on it, so I'm filtering the air a little bit to help get rid of some of the dust that this thing is going to kick up. But this is just a beast for dust, and I'm wearing a respirator. That'll do nicely. Now it's not a perfectly flat top. Actually has a bit of a crown to it, but yeah, it'll be all right. I'll give the same treatment on this side. Amazing what the sanding does just to kind of change the color of the wood. And I strongly suspect this is elm wood. I'll tell you, I have 2 reasons for suspecting it. Well, 3. 1, I was told it was elm. 2, it comes from a part of the country where I live, where elm was a really popular building material for barns 100 years ago, until Dutch elm disease came and the elm boring beetle started destroying the trees. And funny enough, I can see on many of the pieces of wood little boring marks where a bug has been attacking the tree. Over here there's a bunch of marks, over here there's a bunch of marks. So of course the beetles are long gone, but they left their mark. 4th reason is I've seen pictures of elm green, and this looks reminiscent of that. So. All right, back in the shop, we got the tabletop cut to length, and I sanded the other side just to kind of even up the edges more than anything. And then gave the piece a bit of texture. You can't really see it on the camera, but if you run your fingers over it, you can feel a little bit of texture to the wood that was achieved by using a wire brush on the angle grinder. And what that does is it just kind of removes some of the softer wood between the grains and gives it a much more weathered appearance. So I'm kind of pleased with the result of that. You can also see the characteristic marks from the Dutch elm, the elm beetle, the boring beetle that probably destroyed this tree or killed the tree. But I'm going to leave those in as character marks.